The wacky world of MultimediaJay.
Well, there's a setting that I don't use very often. The Xbox channel. Actually, well, I do at least have an Xbox controller that I'll be using for today's little experiment, but speaking of setups I don't use very often, here I am, I just got done talking about this being a utility shelf for experimenting with stuff, and now here we are. There's the Turdshiba, hooked up in a similar fashion to last year's business trip to New York when I was using it in the hotel room, and right now we're downloading the latest Radeon drivers for it to see what kind of performance we can squeeze out of that APU. Now, last year I took a trip out to New York, a business trip, and I actually picked up this laptop with its AMD APU processor. I deliberately blew off the Intel competition because AMD's APUs on the mobile side were known for having better integrated graphics than their Intel counterparts in the same price range. And half the reason for me to even have a laptop in the first place was to use it as a console on the go, so to speak. Now, on the business trip, I actually hooked this up and played a few games in low mode, but there was one very, very important thing that I completely and totally missed. Consoles are so weak, processor and graphics-wise, that even nowadays, they're not doing 1080p. You're hearing about games that are in like 900p or something like that, or maybe 1080-30 if you're lucky. I mean, I just got done the other day finding out about the Nintendo NX supposedly running at 900p. In 2016, we have consoles that aren't going to be running in 1080. 1080p has been around so long, it's gotten old and moldy, so to speak. I mean, you've got people on like the Tech Syndicate channel talking about, oh, 1440p, that's what you want, and here I am still using an old TV at 1080p for gaming. However, I did notice that when I got a PS3, finally after all those years, that the PlayStation 3 was running a lot of stuff at 720p. So my question is, if you're going to spend 300 something on a laptop instead of a video game console, because I think Microsoft and Sony are taking a bath selling that hardware at the price points it's at right now, but if they don't sell it at that price point, they're probably not going to be able to sell much of it at all, and that'll damage the ability of the platform to get decent games when there isn't a large customer base. So anyways, gaming consoles do fill very well the niche at the bottom of the gaming ladder in terms of if you want to spend only like 200, 300, 400 bucks on a gaming system, your most surefire way to do that is to buy a current-gen console. My question is, though, could laptops that aren't even gaming laptops be used to essentially replace the last generation? So when this is done installing, I'm going to drop the resolution down to 720p and go through my Steam library. I've got this thing, I updated my Steam drive, so I updated the backup, stuff that I back up on that USB hard drive, which runs at full speed because it's USB. I got the Nintendo 64 and the Super Retro Trio cramming into that space as planned so that the shelf can be empty for the laptop. So when this is done, let's drop this down to 720p and let's see if the Turdshiba, well, see how the Turdshiba handles my Steam library, because I have a wider variety of games now than I had back when I last tried this. So that's my question. Considering that consoles still struggle to even hit the 1080 mark in the first place, how is 720 on an APU-based laptop stock? I'm also curious because I've been keeping an eye on an Asus desktop as a potential new computer for my dad if he ever wants to retire that ancient e-machine from 2007 that he's been putting up with for far too long. My question is, though, at the 300-something price point, An Asus desktop with an A8 APU probably is not going to have a graphics card, even though it could be expanded to have one later. So you'd be running off of the APU anyways, and this is an A8 laptop. Let's check that out when this finishes downloading. I am curious. You know, I was kind of biased because I'm a PC gamer. I want everything to be at 1080, and that's what I tested when I was out in New York. However, how does my Steam library fare if I try playing it at 720p? Things that make you go, By the way, if I can get this thing to work in 720p and essentially be the equivalent of a last-gen console, this thing only sucks 10 to 30 watts under normal operation. The PlayStation 3, 70 to 80. So heck, it would even be greener than the last-gen consoles for some of these games. Oh, the screen went blank. Oh, there it goes. Must be installing the graphics driver. Let's see what happens when it comes back up. Okay, we got our little Steam party underway here. Let's get things going here. Beginning with Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, which is basically the Steam answer to Mario Kart. It's basically Sega's answer to Mario Kart, but because of this, let's do this one. Let's do easy mode just for the heck of it. It's basically, what's this? Balanced? Balanced. A little more handling. Okay, good. We'll go with that. This is basically Sega's answer to Mario Kart. It's also Steam's answer to Mario Kart. Start with a boost. Yippee skippy. And the frame rate, no. This is in low mode. It's always good to test with a racing game just to see how things could be in intense games with a lot of stuff happening on the screen, and this looks like a cross between the PlayStation 3 and the Nintendo 64. The frame rate reminds me actually of Destruction Derby 64. It's just chuggy, chuggy, chuggy. You could technically play like this, but low mode on this A8 APU is rubbish. So, then again, I'm not so sure that I wouldn't just, if I wanted to build a console killer machine, I probably would get one of those itty-bitty G-Forces, like whatever the modern equivalent of the 750 Ti is. I think like 960 or something like that. But yeah, there's a little tiny G-Force that we could use for this. Now yeah, the game has a steady frame rate, it's just steadily low. This reminds me of something on the Nintendo 64, except with better eye candy. And this is so-called low mode. Everything would be smooth if you were running this on Tuxedo. Tuxedo can fly all over this game. The Turdshiba, not so much. Although it is playable, I'm not really getting much in terms of input lag or anything like that. But the frame rate reminds me of a Nintendo 64 game. But if I was building a console killer machine, I would never run it off of just an APU. I would get one of those little tiny G-Forces and put it in that way and see what kind of performance I could get. Alright, it's enough of this Sonic stuff. I mean, even the menus stutter. It's playable, but it's far from optimal. Again, a cross between PS3 and N64. Nope, thumbs down. Riptide GP2. We tried this out in New York, and we're able to get it running at 1080p on low mode. Now we're trying 720 on almost low mode. The texture resolution is the only thing that I kept high. But yeah, the water looks like Wave Race 64. Let's see if it's at least playable. All the fancy eye candy has been turned off. It looks like this will be a little bit more doable, so to speak, than Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed. Also, the test that we're doing this go-around involves this laptop replacing a last-gen console. Not necessarily, say, trying to be a console killer for PS4 or Xbox One. And when I consider this versus Eternal Sonata earlier, this actually looks more in line with what I would see on a PS3. And I am absolutely, yeah, it's offering to let me use the recover key to get back in the game. But yeah, this is playable. Graphics are turned all the way down, so it is playable in low mode. But I still think if I really wanted to build a true blue console killer, or J-Station as it were, I would probably get one of those blippity little G-forces. Wouldn't require much for power, and I would probably go mini ITX for the build, but at least it might get some decent frame rates as opposed to this. I'm actually curious what would happen if I put one of those itty-bitty G-forces inside like one of those $300 A8 APU Asus machines that keep going on sale. Problem is, the problem with getting a discrete graphics card for a system like that is the consoles themselves are between $300 and $400. So if you go above $400, you're pretty much spending more money. But if that card spells the difference between the built-in APU capabilities and what can happen if you between the built-in APU capabilities and discrete graphics in terms of performance, maybe it could actually be worth it. But in terms of Riptide GP2, which originally came over from mobile, looking like a oh yeah, I totally bombed in this one. In terms of it looking like a last-gen game, I'd say this one is playable more so than Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed is. You definitely want discrete graphics for the Sonic game. Leo's Fortune, also known as the Fuzzball platformer. 720p. This is running really well. This is running smooth and fluid. Okay, this is one that the laptop could handle easily, but then again, it's like 2.5D. It is flying all over this. Yeah. I don't know if it'll show up in the video or not, but yeah, this is basically what Tuxedo does. Maybe I should play this game on here and save some power that way, because, again, this laptop only does 10 to 30 watts versus 70 on the PS3. But it's Leo's Fortune. It's not like I'm trying to run a Crisis game or something on here. Oh yeah, look at this. Absolutely smooth, no frame drops, and I died. Next! Shovel Knight. Well, I'd hope this game would run, considering I've played it at 720p on my netbook before. Actually, I think even the piece of junk Compaq actually would run this. Yeah, I gotta fix that thing. Screen was dying when I stopped using it, never even bothered upgrading it to Windows 10, but it did run off a dual-core Athlon 2. Yeah, this is Shovel Knight. It should run on ancient systems. Well, I know it runs on the netbook, and I'm playing in 720p, so can't even tell because of the retro graphics, but yeah, this is kind of a joke. How about we actually try to challenge the system again? Trine seems to be playable. But then again, this is kind of cheating. Yeah, 2.5D. We need to do something 3D. Let's try Rocket League. Alright, let's try this. Oh, no, I gotta turn things down. No, chug-a-lug. Chug-a-rama. Options. Yeah, turn on the video settings right now. For those of you wondering what low mode looks like in Rocket League, it looks like somewhere between PS1 and PS2. Technically playable, but it's a little too retro. I probably should try turning a few things back up. Frame rate does seem to be like a 30-ish in terms of what the frame rate is, but wow. You almost expect to start this game up when it looks like this and hear the computer go, do, do, do. You know, yeah. Early PlayStation, this most certainly is in terms of graphics. No, Rocket League is too intense unless you want the game to look a lot older than it actually is. It is playable, though, on this A8 APU with no dedicated graphics. It just looks horrible. If you could put up with a horrible-looking Rocket League, and remember that it is still 2016 when you're playing a game that looks like this, that calls itself Rocket League, then yes, this would be doable, but it does not work unless you're willing to put up with these kinds of graphics. Maybe there's some more playing I could do to get this to work on the laptop if I really wanted to. Psychonauts. Or should I say, Psychonauts HD. I would hope that a game that is older than what I'm trying to do with this laptop would run nice and smooth. Looks like it is playable on here. Then again, we're trying to have this laptop serve the purpose of a PlayStation 3. Psychonauts is contemporary to the PlayStation 2. enough said. Brutal Legend. This actually was a PlayStation 3 game, so I hope I can get this to run in at least low mode. I can't really speak as to how this works. With versus the console version, because I picked this sucker up on PlayStation on the Steam store. So I never played the console version because I figured this would look better on Tuxedo. I think I want to play this game on Tuxedo now, darn it. Let's quit wasting time with it here. Crazy Taxi. Absolutely flawless. This is the horrible Steam version with no Offspring music. I gotta mod this so I can actually... Perfectly smooth. Then again, I would hope that a game that is contemporary to the Dreamcast would be perfectly smooth on an APU over 15 years later, heading towards 16. When did this game come out? Yeah, well, I remember the arcade machine around the turn of the millennium as well as the Dreamcast version, and here I am playing it in 720-ish or so. Right, I would hope that this game would run extremely, extremely well. Yeah, moving right along. Dirt 3, Low Mode. This was a game that we did not try out in New York. Don't know why I skipped it, but let's do some racing here. A bit of stuttering as we start everything up. Let's do third-person view and see what it looks like. Playable, but it's definitely closer to the 30 than the 60. Definitely not as smooth as it is on Tuxedo. I don't know if this might be what an Xbox 360 version would have looked like. We got 720p in ultra low mode. Tuxedo flies all over this game. Now I don't know if these graphics look to be on par with the 360 version of this, but it is playable. It's actually more playable than Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed. It might even be more playable than Riptide GP2 because the low mode in this looks as good as it does. Still has a little bit of a... there's still some stuff going on in terms of special effects. Or, well, graphical effects anyways. So, yeah. Well, having never played the console versions of this game, I really can't compare this to anything, but it does kind of look like, it's playable. If I were on a trip, I could hook this up to a TV and play it and enjoy it. It just wouldn't look as good. I'd look to turn up some of the eye candy a bit, maybe potentially keep it around 30 frames a second and turn up as much eye candy as I could. Settle for, or at least turn the V-Sync back on. I see some tearing going on here. I don't know. Early 360 game maybe in terms of the graphics? You be the judge. Burnout Paradise. Well, this one's kind of cheating because we know that it actually works in 1080. But drop down to 720 on low mode, it looks like crap, but it's still definitely playable. It does feel more like a 30 game than a 60 game when played on this laptop, though. I could put it up to make it look as smooth as a 60. Yeah, it's got another sign. And I probably should put some kind of... Oops. I probably should put some kind of... Let's get past that bus that I just rammed into with this hunk of junk. I probably should make my online EA account for this game. I've only had this game for how many years now, and I'm over here like, how come the save game didn't transfer over when I moved everything off of Tuxedo? That couldn't possibly be because I've never actually set up an online account for this game, and maybe it would transfer over if I did. Scrunch! Right into those little things they drill into the concrete so stuff can't go through them. Barriers, yeah. Well, folks, it has been a long night, and I have a day of shoveling snow tomorrow, so the verdict, and I'm so cooking this poor laptop, the fan is just going ballistic right now. So the verdict is, keep an eye on portable technology, keep an eye on what laptops become, because I know a lot of people that swear by laptops. They will not buy a desktop. They don't want something that's actually upgradable. Oops. They don't want something that is actually upgradable. Ooh, drive away. Nice. They just want to keep having these throwaway systems, and they may have a point if these systems on a chip, like the APUs, I'm very curious what the Zen APU is going to be able to do out of the box when AMD gets 40% more instructions per clock. And of course you have Intel with the built-in graphics, noticing, hey, AMD owns a graphics card company now. How about we make something that could actually be used as a system on a chip? And then you look at the consoles themselves. The consoles are all running off of APUs, aka systems on a chip, nowadays. So the whole idea of CPUs always being mathematical and computers always being office machines until you buy a graphics card, which miraculously makes your office machine into a gaming PC. You know, those days are coming to an end, and it'll be very much worth keeping an eye on things to see how this all plays out. I mean, you consider this is a 2015 low-end $300-something laptop that costs roughly the same amount as a console. Nowadays, consoles are between $3 and $4. This laptop costs that, and it runs games right out of the box. Older games, so it just gets me real curious as to what this portable technology is going to do. And am I taking a performance hit because the APU, the APU that I am using is the mobile version of the APU? If I had one of those Asus desktops with A8s in them, that are the desktop version, how exactly would that work? That's my question. Lots of questions that I should answer. Should I actually try building a console killer PC with just enough to have some decent gaming performance and see what it can do? Probably see if I can do 1080-60 with it and call it the J Station or something. I'm thinking fractal design node, some kind of square case, because if I go build a console killer PC, I'm telling you right now, I don't want it to look like a computer. I want it to look at least somewhat like a console, so a square or something, instead of a big tower or something. I don't want it to look like a desktop. Then again, I'm saying this while playing on a laptop with a 360 controller. At 720p nonetheless. But yeah. So I've cut the volume on all these games because some of them had licensed tracks for their music, and I want to put this on YouTube instead of Dailymotion, so in case YouTube is snooty about this kind of thing. But yeah, this is playable, although it feels more like a 30 game than a 60 game. It's definitely not up to Tuxedo's level of performance, even in terms of the frame rate. Never mind that I'm running it in low mode. It's definitely playable though. It looks horrible, but it's playable. I think if I was on a road trip or I was on a business trip, I would most certainly be playing Burnout Paradise in the hotel, if not some other games. Alright. That's enough torturing this poor laptop. The fan is just going crazy. Thanks for watching, everybody. Till next time, this is MultimediaJay signing off. Thanks for stopping by.